All right, we're here. We are here. Let me looks like we're integrated with Twitter. No more problems like we've had in the past. Got a bunch of people jumping on here. All right, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Feeling a little tired today. Feeling a little low energy. A little low energy. We're gonna push through though. All right. We're gonna push through. No excuses. We had just a really nice thunderstorm over here in South Jersey, and it's time for a little post storm Periscope because a lot of big stuff's going on. A lot of big stuff is going on. I just want to write a note down here before I forget. Oh shit! A lot of big stuff's going on, guys. A lot of big stuff. I'm actually gonna move some things around because I'm getting some water on my laptop from the house. I don't want that to happen. So we're gonna move it around a little bit. All right, cool. So we gotta start off with the wine. Now the wine is a Terlaner. Now Terlaner is it's not a very big appellation. It's in Alto Adige, or rather, when I say appellation, I mean type of wine. And basically, a lot of what you get in Alto Adige, right? This is northern Italy. This is a very German part of Italy. It's about 100% German. Pretty interesting. Italy's wanted this place. Italy's wanted it because they want the water line, right? You understand with geography, in order for Italy to feel secure, so during the reunification of Italy, it was a big thing about getting this German, really Austrian area of northern Italy. Alto Adige was like 100% German, pretty much, and the area south of it, Trentino, was mostly German. And this was part of Austria-Hungary. It was populated by Austrians, but the Italians wanted it because it had the water line. So basically what would happen is that all the water in northeastern Italy was coming down from here. So you could block it, you could dam it up. So they wanted to get to the point in the Alps where the water would start to flow north. That would be their border. And so basically, of course, this would have been a Nazi objective, but because they were allied with each other, Germany sort of, let this go. But then after the fall of Italy, the Germans obviously annexed it. I mean, it was very short-lived, and the Nazis didn't last much longer. So afterwards, it became a big thing. So about trying to have this sort of regional organization. So you have Trentino, Alto Adige, which pretty much makes up South Tyrol. North Tyrol is in Austria proper. And they have this sort of almost like international confederation across borders. And it's kind of cool. They have an enormous amount of autonomy, and they contribute. They have control over 90% of their own tax base. So it's part of Italy, nationally speaking, but locally, it's really more of its own country and is pretty much like Austria in terms of how it's run. No offense to my Italian friends here, but it's a pretty well-run province compared to a lot of the other ones. So anyway, so what is Terlaner itself? So usually you're going to have Rieslings and stuff in this area. Yeah, we got the Wi-Fi fixed a bit, so it should be better. Terlaner is a mix of Pinot Blanc and I believe Chardonnay mostly, and this one has a little bit of also Sauvignon Blanc in it. So it's about 60% Pinot Blanc, 30% Chardonnay, 10% Sauvignon Blanc. You can see it right here. It's very good. I had it last night. I had some of it last night. This is the remains, so we're going to be polishing off here. Really, really fresh, really well balanced. It's got a little bit of honey to it, which is kind of nice. That's got to be that's an interesting question. What would that be coming from? I'm not sure what varietal. I can make it up. Not the Sauvignon, that's for sure. Could be the Pinot Blanc. Take care. It's a good question. I mean, smoking will definitely mess up your palate. There's no question about that. Anything that, like spicy foods, I think spicy foods are not a good idea because spicy food degrades your palate. So if I could recommend people do any two things, it's not smoke very much and not have spicy food very much if they want to improve it. A lot of people, though, who get into tasting, people who do really well in tasting have a genetic disposition towards it. Um, there's kind of three broad tiers. You have super taster, you have taster, and then you have just standard. And most people are standards. Then there's a good amount that are tasters, and then there's a very, very few who are super tasters. So, I mean, I'm not a super taster, but I am a taster. But I've been around a lot of wine people. They take the test, and like a lot of them don't have any. So, but to be fair, the tasting has to do probably more with the stuff on your tongue. I feel like that probably matters more for being a cook, whereas with wine, what you're really getting is nose aromas. So it has much more to do with your sense of smell than your sense of taste. If that makes any sense. It's not about how bitter things are, really, or how. I mean, it is certainly, it helps, but I think you can get away with it a bit more. Anyway, let's get into the Periscope here. We got two big topics we want to talk about. Obviously, I think we need to address. We got the new pick. We got the VP pick. We got Kamala Harris, which we knew was going to happen. I mean, it's not really much of a surprise to any of us here. We knew, kind of suspected it was going to be Kamala. Really, I mean, it does. I was going to say really bad choice, but at this point, yeah, Kamala Harris. At this point, who cares, guys? Like, really, who cares? A lot of these periscopes, like we start to focus a lot more on morale. I just want to really emphasize this for people. Like, everything's going really well. Everything's going fine. I don't. I'm not being trying to be mean or anything, but I don't understand how people keep losing sight of this. I don't understand how they keep losing sight of it. I mean, nothing that's going on right now. And thanks for the hearts there. Nothing that's going on right now possibly favors the Democrats. I mean, to me, it's so funny when I see this. When I see Nate Silver going on again, and I give him credit because he's stubborn in being wrong. He's almost like, he almost knows that he's wrong, but he's like, I have to follow through with my model. It's like, he's like, this didn't work last time, but we got to do it again. Data, we must respect data. It's like a kamikaze charge, right? It's like a bonsai charge. I don't know what Cernovich has been saying recently, but it's just like, how do people feel like things are going badly? There's a really easy way that you can get this as a heuristic. Here's a really easy way. I'll answer that thing with the UK in a second. There's a really easy way to know that things are going to work out. You don't even if you're like, your sense of kind of energy and the changing times isn't quite there. Really easy, okay? Ask yourself how many people or have heard hated Trump before who are now no longer against him or who have warmed up to him. How many people do you know like that? Versus how many people do you know who love Trump and now hate him and are going to like enthusiastically voting for Biden? I'm not talking about like a handful of paid shills on Twitter who obviously did it for cash. I'm talking about people in real life. Do you know anybody? Because I can tell you, I know like zero, like absolutely zero. There's not a single person I know of in real life. And I know a lot of people, I know plenty of Trump people, and they get despairing, right? They get despair about things, maybe. But no one's voting for Biden if they voted for Trump. I got a little pigeon's nest here. You see this? Changing of the guard right now. I think one's about to jump out. Anyway, they're going to kill that plant. I have to keep dumping water on top of them so the plant doesn't get killed. I don't like it very much. So yeah, you don't know anybody like that. But there are tons of people who voted for Biden or who voted for Clinton who are now moving towards Trump or have zero enthusiasm whatsoever for Biden. So you don't need to look at some garbage polls to even know, right? You don't need to know it. There are so many people moving over. There are more people moving over than in any other election I've ever seen. I've never seen a re-election campaign with so many people moving over. So I don't know if it's going to be a 50-state landslide, but it's going to be big. Now, let's talk about, so what are the contingencies with that? Well, there's been a couple attempts, right? So you had the 17 the 17 whirlpools, right, behind him. 17, remember the number 17, where he says, a lot of rich, powerful people don't like me. You might not see me for a while. And, whether or not, we've been seeing him in public places or whether this has been kind of staged, there's been some discussion about that since that thing occurred. But there's been a couple attempts, right? Next press conference, he has to leave in the middle of it because a Secret Service agent killed. Pretty strange, right? Pretty strange. You had a couple of teens with semi-automatics trying to get in the Mar-a-Lago. Interesting. And then today, we had I just heard this. One of the helicopters that does escort duty for Trump was shot at. If we're lagging, guys, I'm sorry. I'm doing the best I can. I don't really know. Can't really do much else. So they were shot at. Pretty serious stuff. Now, I don't think that they were on detail with Trump, but someone shooting. I mean, when have you heard of somebody shooting a gun at a helicopter that does escorts for the president? I mean, this is some pretty serious stuff that had to be grounded. So there's going to be stuff coming. I mean, there's going to be stuff coming. Those of you who have been following a little bit of like the astrological stuff, yeah, injured airmen from it. Exactly. No, Halloween's going to be a big one. It's 19 years after 9/11. And apparently these cycles go in 19 years with horoscopes with the lunar cycles. Follow Paul Publisher for more on that kind of stuff, right? But we're going to have a rough fall. We keep saying this, but I really just want you guys to, let's stay positive, all right? Let's stay positive. Let's not freak out, okay? Let's not worry. If things were really going well for them, then they would have no need to be so overt and so aggressive. And frankly, I mean, assuming this isn't all just staged, you have to really question like what's going on here, because any sort of sane political establishment, any sort of sane party would in no way put, poopy diaper Biden up there. I mean, that's what I call him now. I call him poopy diaper Biden, because he's like literally sitting in his basement shitting himself all the time. He sits there and shits himself. So I can't understand how, they're trying to say maybe he shouldn't be on the presidential, maybe we shouldn't have the debates, or he's going to wear a mask the entire time and his voice is going to sound different. I don't really know. It's just like a joke. And Kamala Harris is hated by everybody. I mean, she is probably one of the least popular people, including in the African-American community. So it's a pretty shitty ticket. Play on that theme a little bit longer. It's a pretty shitty ticket. There is really not much to worry about with this. I know I'm not at the same time trying to say people should just rest on their laurels and not care. I mean, we got to continue to bring the energy. I mean, this is still a fight for our lives, right? This is still a fight for our lives. But let's not go into battle afraid of the outcome, right? Let's not go into battle afraid of the outcome. Now, this brings me to a topic that I did want to address, because I've been seeing a lot of stuff, especially in the more esoteric sections. So two things, and they're linked together. So the first, and this was a big thread, a mega thread that went around in the Q. Q says we're watching a movie, right? Q says we're watching a movie. And so this guy is now asserting that actually we are. And the entire purpose of what's going on right now in the operation is simply just to disclose this information to the public. All of the sort of cabal figures have either been replaced. These are actors. right? Or they're clones, doubles, whatever. In that we don't have to, everything is just designed to wake people up. I am, and I've been seeing this from other people who have been talking about how there were executions already, and how it is a clone thing, right? It's a clone thing. I'm not like, I'm keeping an open mind, all right? I keep an open mind with this stuff because who knows? But I can tell you that this does not really feel to me like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, it just seems like a little bit of a reach. And I can tell you from an energetic perspective, it doesn't feel like they're gone. Okay. I'm sure there's some clones involved, but I think that the assertion that everything is completely wrapped up right now, all operations are wrapped up, that they were wrapped up years ago, that Trump is just acting as president and everything's taken care of. I'm not saying it isn't possible. Maybe it's not the kind of movie I want to watch, right? Maybe it's not the kind of thing, but it really feels to me like there is still tons of negative energy out there. And there are active attempts to try to cultivate it in people. Yeah, where's John John? People are saying he's maybe the bodyguard. I also saw something recently that he's the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, which would certainly put a spin on the part of Jesus coming back, the second coming of Christ. Again, though, I don't know. I don't know about that stuff. And tied to this is, and I'm going to go into more detail with it, but tied to this is the whole idea of the ascension, right? That we're all ascending into 5D and that the world's going to end. Okay. And this is a really big theme that you start to see pushed around a lot in Q circles. And I have to just say to people that while anything is possible, okay, I don't really understand it. And what makes me very, very skeptical is this constant sort of push of like a savior complex, right? It's a constant push that we are being saved externally, that there are all these other ships that are coming in, they're helping, and they're making sure all this happens, and then this is going to occur, and all the positively polarized people are going to get taken to the heaven, and everybody else is going to be recycled, and we don't have anything to worry about. It's just so, it's to me, it's like people who feel like they're special are it's like the kind of usual thing, like we're going to be saved and you guys aren't, and everything's just going to change like that. I don't know about you guys. I'm a pretty high vibration guy. I wouldn't really say that I think I probably struggle between the sort of reason 400 levels between. I'm probably like, it's probably like, if you're looking at the Hawking scale, I find myself really between reason and love. So 400 and 500 around. I've met people at 540. This is I've met people at 540, and it's really a crazy jump from there. It's a crazy, crazy jump. I mean, the amount of intensity and joy that these people have, and just the warmth. But I don't really, I feel like there's still plenty I have to learn here, right? And I feel like we are, as a race, as a people, as humanity, we are moving, as a human race, right? We are moving into a different era for humanity. But I don't really, but I don't really see, like, I don't get how we can just be like, oh, we're taken into heaven, right? Working towards these higher level stuff takes time, and we came here to learn. And so while I can kind of get that as Earth moves to a different tier, that people who haven't done the work maybe will reincarnate on a separate planet. I know this is crazy stuff for some of you guys who aren't into the esoterics, but I want to play with this because there's a lot of things that are talking about the ascension timeline. I get that, but I mean, this idea that the planet is going to go through another reverse magnetic pole that's going to wipe out all life, and people are going to, I mean, I just, like, the same people who are saying this are talking about how we're resetting the financial system. So kind of reconcile that for me. Why would we be resetting the financial system if the world's ending? Why would we be doing it? Why would they even care? Why would it be remotely a program? And you see them say the same things at the same time. It's like everybody's going to have replicator technology, and they can just do whatever they want, right? And they can live however they want. It's like, sorry, we're not at a level of consciousness where we could do that yet. We still have a lot of work to do. And even with this great awakening, we're going to have work to do. The big thing is going to be removing the lower polarizations. But I mean, people are not just going, like, the fact that people are even saying this kind of tells me that they're not at the right point yet, because they're looking externally for some sort of change to occur. So anyway, I just wanted to like make this little, it's a little rant, but I just want to push back a bit against it, because I've just seen it so much over time. We are in an energetic war right now, and we are part of that, and we're bringing it, and we have assistance, both cosmically and probably from other, ETs, etc. But and I do think things are under control, and I think the timeline war is a really accurate way of looking at this. It makes perfect sense to me. It meshes with everything. That things were going to go in a dark timeline, that's been averted. But it doesn't mean that everything is just taken care of and now we're like la la land, we go to heaven and everything's perfect. And no, we're going to space, guys. We're going to space. We are going to space. We're joining the galactic community. We're going to space. So, but yeah, there are definitely energetic wars going on. Now, I get asked here, how can one best approximate where they fall personally on the Hawkins scale? I don't have an exact calibration. But I mean, someone could test me. Like, I'd be happy to have someone test me. But I mean, I can accurately say for sure, like, I have entered into a state of joy, but it hasn't lasted a long time. Like, I've experienced, actually, I think I experienced higher than that. I experienced bliss when I had like 600, when I had around, I'm generalizing, when I had a very serious spiritual experience. Like, I've experienced it. It's like a peak state. But I mean, on a baseline, I pretty much vacillate between that. That's kind of my baseline area. I would say between this sort of higher 400s, around 500, around that. I still have lower pockets though, right? And I'm going to be writing about this in my book and about clearing out these pockets. But whatever. I mean, someone could objectively tell me if I'm, wrong or not. So, oh, the EMP co, yeah. So there's a lot of stuff around this. Sorry, I'm going to look at some other topics I got for you guys. So, all right. So, historical parallels to child trafficking satanic rituals we see today with elites. Well, apparently this stuff goes all the way back to Babylon. I mean, the way that I understand this from an esoteric perspective is that a lot of the things going on have their roots after the fall of Atlantis. So it's so we can go back, like allegedly Atlantis was an attempt here before civilization had reached a similar or even greater technological point, and then collapsed. Right. The fall of Atlantis was basically, they chose the left-hand path, as you might say. They chose the sort of path of the cabal, and they were annihilated. And so, and then things got rebuilt, and then it gets very like sketchy about, the Anunnaki and the reptilians, and kind of who re-engineered humans. I don't really have enough expertise to really pinpoint that, and people are still arguing about it all the time about, were the Anunnaki actually reptilians? Or did the reptilians just mimic the Anunnaki, pretend that they were the Anunnaki? That's like people spent their life trying to piece that stuff together, and I certainly am not doing that. But a lot of these cults have been from all the way back then, and they've taken different forms over the years. right? So you have these sort of Satanists, and this is the whole thing when people talk about the Jews, right? The Jews, that it's a sect that they sort of connected a lot of times with the Khazars who took on Judaism and sort of infiltrated, right? Or they take it back to, and that's when they talk about a lot of heavy Talmudic stuff that actually has to do with this left-hand path. That's the sort of theory around it, that they're really an infiltrated group within the broader part of Judaism. But they're across the board. I mean, they're they're everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere, and they've probably infiltrated every little group in society. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about the explosions. Let's change topics here. Let's talk about the explosions in Beirut. All this election stuff in Belarus. I can't tell you guys if the election stuff in Belarus is legit or not. It's kind of interesting. You have like official results 80% for Lukashenko, CABAL results 80% against him. And truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, I'm sure Lukashenko is fabricating things. I'm also sure that 80% of the population in Belarus is not voting against him. Like, there's no way 80% of the population voted against Lukashenko. So, I mean, sorry, I don't. I mean, maybe it's possible, but you have to look at the convenience of all this stuff. Like, I'm so fucking sick and tired of people trying to, like, it's like that old energy is so stale now. Like, caring about, oh, this event, like this explosion in Beirut, they're trying to make it into some big international incident. Oh, it's like Hezbollah again, we have to go to war. Israel's involved with it. Was it Russia? It's like, and the same thing in Belarus is like, let's pick on another country that is next to the EU, that is aligned with Russia, and let's pick them to take them down, right? We gotta prime a way through some democratic revolution. It's all the same fucking stuff over and over again. It's so boring. And you notice how no one's really picking up on it. I mean, first off, no one globally is responding to it. No one seems to care, and that's a good sign that things are really under control, because these false flag attempts, these like incited international dramas aren't really working. The only real international player right now that's a serious problem, I mean, you have Iran, sure, but Iran's not serious player. Iran's small dice or whatever, small fish. It's only China. China's the only country that is really, like, I have some concern about. I have full optimism it's going to get dealt with, but like, that's a problem. China's a problem. Okay, it's a massive nuclear-armed communist state that the cabal is financially embedded into, and that if the cabal falls, the regime falls. So that's a really delicate situation. That's a really, really delicate situation. And I think if there's going to be any, what's the word I'm looking for? If there's going to be any intervention on a real serious scale, it's going to have to come from that. So yeah, about UK's future. So one of my favorite accounts, Magenta Pixie, she does a lot of stuff with YouTube. When you listen to people who say they're channelers, you have to be really, really skeptical, especially if they are, if they're always talking about how right they are all the time. I mean, it just doesn't really match the right vibration for somebody who you would think would be operating in a way that could be congruent for it. I've seen tons and tons of people who say they channel, and the only one that even kind of remotely feels like good, the only one that even remotely seems like congruent, is Magenta. I mean, nothing she says to me is filled with like any sort of negative intention. and she doesn't overstep, in what she says. I mean, this is a lot of this material's channeled, but I think it's frankly quite positive. So one of the things that she said, and she's British, by the way, but one of the things that she always says is that, like, all eyes on America, right? What happened? America is the linchpin for the world. The UK has been really the epicenter of the cabal. Maybe the UK and Israel, epicenters of the cabal. I haven't seen your Lionsgate thing. That's earmarked for me. You can post down here like what it's about. I mean, I think it has to do with these energetic gates, though, that some people are misinterpreting, I think, as being literal gates, and maybe on a higher dimensional reality that's the case. Physically for us here, I don't think it's going to appear in that way. But she's really like, I mean, America is the place, and once we got the presidency, it's all that's why I was like the end of it. That was the end of it. And so the rest of the world will come around to it. There's no question. But they're going to be following in America's footsteps. Things have gotten really bad though in the UK. I mean, I don't mean, like, I just mean the totalitarianism that's going on. The US is really a microcosm or macrocosm really of the polarization, because you have so many brainwashed people in the US, but you also have so many people who are not. You still have a lot of like fighting spirit in the US, and I think the UK, unfortunately, is a bit more of a conformist culture. And it's just, I think, because of the class aspect of it, there's not even a constitution in the UK. So I think it was very easy for them to sort of, you have state media, state healthcare, everything is state owned, and people sort of look to the state institutions as, so there's always, of course, tons of bright minds, right? There's tons of bright minds who, are part of the ethos of British liberty, right? Which undergirded the world, but, was a lot of the ideas that our Constitution was based on. But yeah, anyway, I mean, I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that I think it is it's going to be one of the last places to really fully get deprogrammed, because it's pretty messed up, but it's going to be taken care of. And I'm just kind of like interested to see what's going to happen in the 2030s, because we're going to have so much transition. I've been hearing things about like quantum internet. I don't even know what that means. But I have been hearing things like people having payments, like people having debt just disappear. I've been hearing a lot of this. I even know somebody personally whose debt just disappeared. Taken off his credit card, gone, like that. A couple $1,000s. Ireland has a lot of the sort of, they're very obsessed with the EU, I think, because they use the EU as kind of a counter allegiance to the UK. But, and I've heard from some Irish friends that I've met a lot of Irish people. I was at some Irish events last year, and they seem pretty brainwashed. But so I don't know. But, Irish people always like to get into a good fight. So once they wake up, they'll get mad. Once they wake up. Yeah, man, the Nasara stuff is really strange to me. I mean, I don't really buy the story. It seems to me too strange that if the military did this and they did it in a closed session of Congress, that there would not be a single congressperson who would know about this or speak about it on record. At this point, I just feel like that's unlikely. I feel like it's unlikely. So I'm not, but the sort of plan for the financial reset, like, yeah, I fully on board with it, and I do think that things are happening. I really do think things are happening. You saw with the payroll tax, right? Payroll tax gone. There's been a ton of tax payments deferred. It seems like a death by 1,000 cuts, a gradual demolition of this entire old world. Let me see some other things here. What else do I got to talk about? We got a few more minutes. Trying to type in a password. All right. Yeah, we got the TikTok ban, right? TikTok ban, 45 days unless it's bought by an American company. We'll see if that happens. Um, more stuff going on around all the, emergency broadcast system. I keep seeing the same thing go around. It's like new intel, emergency broadcast system. Like Trump's going to tweet out the storm is upon us. It's like, look, could happen. It could happen. And I do think that there's going to be something that occurs with the emergency broadcast system at some point. Um, it was put in place for a reason. And I think that we will see that reason. And the 10 days of darkness, who knows what's going to occur with that? Who knows? But I don't, some of this stuff, like, it's going to be everything. There's going to be nonstop broadcasted trials. Again, it's just too heavy. It's just too heavy handed. It's like, it's just people trying to like race to the ending, Let me see what else we got here. Oh yeah, you had all the buildings burning. All right, so I have one more topic I'll talk about here. Two more topics. I got two more topics I'm gonna talk about here, real quick. So we have the first off, we were talking about the all these explosions and stuff with Beirut, all the stuff with the election in Ukraine. But then there's these other buildings burning. Like, hey, I'm really happy. I'm really happy that I'm just doing my part here. I'm glad to hear that, man. Glad to hear that. You saw that the buildings were burning in Brussels, right? There's that big building burning in Brussels. Big building burning in Brussels. That's a tongue twister there. Did you guys see what Jay Campbell put out recently? Pretty big thread. I shared it. And it was about this Belgian assassin human trafficker. And it was talking about all this stuff with children being used by the elite, how he would procure them. Talked about hunts, right? About actually hunting these children on castle grounds. Okay, and this is actually completely legit. Okay, it completely checks out. This is somebody who went to jail for all sorts of childhood offenses against children, and he got out pretty much without a sentence. He was being paid millions of dollars and through his wife's account. So he was clearly working for the cabal. So speculation that Jay had, and I think he could really very well be right with this, is that a lot of these buildings burning are like they're burning evidence, kind of like the Chinese consulate. Could be. Yes, Marc Dutroux. That's it. Marc Dutroux. I remember Dutroux. So, pretty crazy. And you know what's funny about the whole hunt on the castle grounds stuff? I mean, people always reference Eyes Wide Shut, but there's another movie, and I'm forgetting it right now. It has kind of like a standard, pretty thin blonde girl who's kind of got a little bit too much eye makeup. And I saw it over someone's shoulder on the plane. And I was like, oh my God, this is 100% a Cabal film before I knew like all these details. And basically, they have to draw cards. And, the cards indicate that they have to sacrifice the bride. So it was supposed to be a little wedding weekend. She ends up trying to be killed by her, fiance's family. And there's this whole drama. But it all takes place at this castle, right? And there's a satanic ritual sacrifice thing that has to occur. And she's running, right? She has to, at one point, she's running through the woods. They have a scene where she's trying to get through the gate, this little live thing, and her, like, the metal spike there has to cut into her breast, right? It's so fucking sick. So, but this is the whole thing. It's like they have the dogs chasing after her. It's so clear that they're just constantly referencing these things that they do. So, last other thing here I wanted to mention, Mr. Botus, IET, he's been gone. He's been removed. But he had a big thing on the 1871 incorporation, which is basically that they, they got to go, right? They got to go. The 1871 incorporation, this is that the United States became incorporated in that we were no longer citizens to a republic, but after that, we became basically subjects to a corporation, which was controlled by international banking cartels like the Rothschilds. And the executor of it was the Queen of England. And this is something that apparently happened after the Civil War because the United States was bankrupted from it. And, the whole idea here is that they've been doing this at least since the Napoleonic Wars, right? And if you read between the lines, I mean, I've studied a lot of Napoleon. I've read his biography. If you read between the lines, you start to understand why he hated Britain so much and why he would get so paranoid. Because it was like, I mean, look, I don't want to put Napoleon on a pedestal because, he was certainly, who knows what his ultimate goals would be. He certainly had hubris, but I mean, I admire him. I think he's a man of action. I think that he was a dreamer, right? I think he completely reshaped Europe. I think that he had his hubris and he overstepped, but I think that in many ways he was an impressive individual, right? Tolstoy would maybe disagree, but I really buy into that narrative of him. I think it's hard, in my perspective, not to admire him as a man. But you can see, at least his objectives were to create this sort of new European system. And of course he was going to be, the person in authority, but Britain was always at war with him. Britain would never allow peace. And France had severe problems throughout this. I forget the name of it. I posted it before. I'll see if I can bring it up. Basically, I mean, they constantly had problems because of the way that banks would treat him. Banks would basically withhold all this money from him. And so it was very difficult for him to get the French state's finances in order. Now, I'm not saying that he handled it correctly and how he dealt with it, because his response, they kind of provoked him into getting more aggressive and overstepping. And he has to take ownership for that, right? It was his downfall. But you start to understand a lot of this, neurosis towards the UK throughout European history for a while. But it has nothing to do with the British people themselves. It has nothing to do with the British people themselves. I mean, I'm an Anglo, for Christ's sake. My family's all Anglo. My father's family. It's just that the UK state was gradually the bastion of international finance. And that the British Empire effectively became if you controlled the finances of the UK, you controlled the British Empire. And so anyway, this whole thing is that the US became a corporation effectively. And it had its first bankruptcy in 1871. That's when it happened. And then had another bankruptcy in the 1930s, right, with Roosevelt. And that's when we got rid of the gold standard. And that's been a constant. That's the whole thing with the seal changing, right? We got rid of the seal. Just have the White House. There's no longer the seal. The flag no longer has the gold trim, which was apparently an indication of the corporate flag of the United States. It's all pretty interesting, and in some ways it's kind of hard to believe. But I mean, guys, we're here talking about all this kind of stuff. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't hard to believe. I mean, it checks out. It certainly checks out. And you can definitely say that American history got really corrupt starting in the 1870s. That is when big business started to rape this country. Prior to that, you really had a sense that this was a republic. And we had the Civil War, of course, but I mean, it was a republic. You could really feel that congressmen, people were connected to their states, connected to their districts. There was this sort of orientation to produce statesmen. And there was a tendency of decentralization. Starting in the 1870s, it's called the Gilded Age, right? Because it was robber barons. See, it sounds a lot to me like international finance maybe had something to do with that. Maybe international finance, once they took over the United States as a corporation, that they were able to, buy off a lot of politicians and start to set things going in that direction. Anything's possible at this point. Now, last thing I was going to say here was just about the, I guess I could do it. I guess I could try to do something like that. You just give my own takes. No, I have the fortune. I had a really good history professor. He's quite liberal, but he was a very good professor. He was a very, very good. Yeah, China virus. That's the last point I was going to talk about. but my father is also a huge history person. So between the two of them and sort of my own curiosity, I got I had a pretty fortunate childhood when it came to that stuff. And I have to say, I mean, I think I've mentioned this before, but when when I was at Penn, I had to take U.S. history again for credits for my history major, and it was kind of pointless from my perspective because I felt like I knew it very well, but I had to take the course. And the course was based on Howard Zinn's work, which was just like a socialist history of the United States. And it was so bad. I mean, it was so bad. And I can't believe people who didn't really know American history, they had to read that. It educated you so little on what actually happened in the country. You had no sense for the energy behind the founding of this country at all. It was all revisionism. It was all guilt politics. And it was, frankly, I thought it was pretty divisive. I mean, all the focus was on how bad America's been. And of course, like any country, we've had our faults, right? We've had our errors. You don't have to say it, obviously, with slavery, right? But the degree to which they focused on this and none of the other things. I mean, the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence, like, completely changed the consciousness of the world. Changed the consciousness of the world. So, anyway, the last thing I wanted to mention here was about just some of the COVID-related stuff. Obviously, usual bullshit, blah, blah, blah. Talking about more cases, even though their deaths are pretty much non-existent. Coming out about how masks don't work, right? When they're not fitted properly, don't have the right specifications. Like, we all know that stuff already. It's starting to come out a bit. But what's interesting is to think about when you have all this stuff against hydrochloroquine, which apparently could even cleanse your pineal gland, right? Apparently could have a lot of other properties to it, aside from just being an anti-malarial. But you're always going to see these ads. It's Gilead that's attacking them because they're trying to produce their own medical solution to it. Meanwhile, you have another kind of interesting track record. So you have Moderna. Okay, Moderna is another pharmaceutical company which is developing a vaccine. Moderna apparently is actually, its progenitor company was IG Farben, which was a Nazi pharma company. And that apparently this was brought into the United States via the Soros family, name changed, and Epstein was a big investor in it. So I don't know about you, but I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good knowing that these guys are producing the vaccine. I feel pretty good knowing that a Nazi company is producing my vaccine. Yeah, remdesivir, I think, is Gilead's drug. And yeah, it's big money. This is a really good thing, though, to talk to your leftist friends about because they've been skeptical. They hate big pharma. So you say, yeah, I mean, big pharma, as usual, we have a drug that's cheap and almost free for people to use that'll cure it. And big pharma wants all this money, right? Big pharma wants, this is a really good talking point to, like, you want to try to find bridges for people on the left who are still waking up. So guys, oh yeah, I think the last thing here, just, funny thing, Kamala's former press secretary is the Twitter censorer, right? Pretty funny how that works out. So will they jail for refusing the vaccine? They might try to do it in certain countries, or there's going to be talk about it. I don't think it's going to happen. Magenta doesn't think it's going to happen. It's not going to go that far. But you're going to have to speak up. You're going to have to use your voice. And guys, what I'm predicting in the fall, okay, this is my prediction, which I'm getting this from other sources, and I'm kind of using my own discernment. But I really think that what's going to characterize this fall season, late September in particular, but October, is that you are going to see elevated levels of tyranny and violence from the cabal. You're going to see more assassination attempts. You're going to see terrorism. You're going to see more raids and all sorts of shit going on. But what you're also going to see is you're going to see the regular American, and maybe across the globe as well. You are going to see people rise up against it. And they're going to be like Attila's Attila's gym, which is just a couple miles away from me. I'm actually going to go there next week. I'm going to see if they're open again, and I want to help pay their legal fees a little bit, just give a little bit of a contribution. But this is a gym in Pennsauken, New Jersey, that's saying we're going to stay open. And then they arrested them, and they fined them, and they just, when they got let out of jail, they went back and opened the gym again, and they're going to keep doing it. And they have, posters in there of Phil Murphy, the governor, sucking dick and stuff like that. It's pretty funny. But they're basically saying that we're not obeying, we're disobeying, and this is going to accelerate big time. You're going to see it accelerate big time when the fall hits, and some of these states are going to say they have to close everything again. You're going to start to see more and more businesses say no. You're going to see more and more people say, I'm not going to wear a mask. You saw this thing in Victoria in Australia recently, where like a cop basically arrested and, violently arrested this girl. I have to be honest, I thought that she was just some sort of obnoxious protester. So I was like, oh, who cares? So it just shows you your perception can really make you into blind spots. But apparently she was arrested because she wasn't wearing a mask, right? And so she resisted that, and she apparently had a medical condition. I mean, I wouldn't care either way. And it's pretty crazy to do that on the street. But I think you're going to see a lot more of it. I think you're going to see a lot more. And they're just not going to have a leg to stand on, right? I mean, Cuomo is not going to be able to tell people what to do. People are just going to, it's going to be like there's going to be a revolt against the evil and the rot. So guys, with that, I mean, I can take a couple of questions. Got about 5 minutes for questions if you guys want to post some beneath here. What do we got? Any questions? I'll see if I missed anything. See if I missed anything here. Yeah, I've heard some stuff about the Trump signs. By the way, I've heard some say that there weren't. There were less. I think there's less signs overall, but I can tell you, I'm in a pretty liberal town, or at least there's a lot of vocal liberals here. I think actually, in fact, it's pretty moderate, but you know how you have a couple of really vocal liberals move in, and there haven't been too many signs. There's some. There haven't been too many. Certainly not from the past. There are, in my town, probably 0 Trump signs. That has nothing to do with the support level. People just don't want to make their house a target. It's not worth it. Like, my family doesn't have one. We would have always had one in the past. And my dad probably would do it. I kind of actually, to be honest, I encourage him not to do it because I don't want to attract that polarization. But when you leave this town and you go to sort of the outlying towns, like literally just even like a mile away, towns that are less affluent, more like solid middle class, working class, you start to have Trump signs, and you start to also have signs that are subliminally pro-Trump, that are like explicitly talking about God, Constitution, police, right? So you start to see a lot of subtext signs there. What states are def wins for Republicans? Upper Midwest, def win for Republicans. I would be very surprised if Minnesota doesn't also go red this year. But Trump's not losing any states, put it that way. He's not losing any states. Probably going to gain Minnesota, probably going to gain New Hampshire. I mean, honestly, I think he could put like 48 states red. I think he could probably do the entire country if we get rid of fraud, like the mail ballot stuff. After what happens right now, if we had the election, that wouldn't happen. But let's see what happens in 3 months. A lot can change in 3 months. From where we're at now to 3 months prior, huge difference. I mean, I can count, on 2 hands the number of people I know personally who have flipped That's huge. That's a huge number for one person to know. At what point did I realize Trump was messing up? He's not messing up. He's not messing up. Love these trolls. Guys, I'll talk about 5G next time. It's a little bit, I had it on the list. It's just too much to get into. Because there's some stuff around it with Corona. But, you know, the big thing is like 5G was maybe replaced. I'm going to go a little bit more deep into that. But yeah, that the 5G that was supposed to be implemented actually got removed. Yeah, Starlink definitely is anti 5G. I mean, it completely bypasses it. Now you can argue. I mean, is Starlink good? You have to trust it because you have to trust the Space Force because Trump. You know, if you trust Trump, you have to trust Elon. You have to trust the Space Force. You just have to do it. There's two. It doesn't make any sense if you choose one or the other. But I will admit that some of Elon's stuff, like Neuralink and Starlink, I mean, these things are not necessarily exactly what I would be about, right? But I also understand that in the instance of like Starlink, for instance, it's pretty necessary to have a free global internet if we're going to be moving to the space age. Do I believe in starseeds light workers? 100%, 100%. I also believe in some of the subtypes, right? The two big ones, crystal, indigo. That there are people who have different sort of energetic frequencies with that. I would definitely be an indigo. I know some crystals though. It's basically indigos are very aligned with discernment and truth. They're more like warriors, and crystals are sort of more like healers. They're more like medics. They don't really like the front, but they're very good at holding the field, I suppose you could say. But I think it's been, I mean, one of the reasons that the consciousness has moved up, a lot of people I think have incarnated here during this time to be here to basically deal with it, basically to help carry this stuff. Like, I really don't like say this in a way that's sort of like ego. I mean, to me, it's sort of like a surrender. But I just understand very clearly that, especially based on my own story about like how I was born and, you know, like I was here specifically for this purpose. Like, I don't know what happens later on. I'm sure I'll have a good life. Maybe I'll ascend, right? But I'm here to help wake people up. Like, one of the reasons I do these periscopes is because I have a very deep knowing that whatever comes from it, it's like if I'm here and I'm not helping to kind of do my part, and there's tons of people like me in different corners who are just kind of keeping the energy up for people, keeping the perspective up for people, sharing sort of what we understand. Like I wasn't. My mom was 41 when she had me. There was almost no. It defied all sort of medical science that, based on the kind of protections that they were using, that I could have been born. When my mom had a miscarriage years earlier, she was actually like crying. This is a very personal story, but I'm going to share it with you guys. She was crying because she actually felt like relieved that she wasn't going to have a child, and she felt guilty about that because she didn't want another child. And that night she had like an experience with Jesus, and he basically told her just wait. And then a few years later, she found out she was pregnant with me when she wasn't supposed to. So, I mean, there's not really a reason for me to be here under regular circumstances. I think I really wanted to be here for this. I think I fought my way into this world. And there's a lot of people like me, and it's been ongoing. You can just see, and you can tell. You can tell when someone's, at least I can tell when somebody is a starseed. Most people will think they're kind of weird. Like my niece is one. She's got her own stuff right now. She's young and she's kind of figuring things out, but there's no question she holds that energetic space. She's more of a crystal though, not an indigo. So let me see. I got to move through this because I got dinner. I'll just say this. I mean, he made a lot of division in this country. This is like saying that Trump made division in a country is like saying when somebody says, it's like when you're trying to rape somebody and they say no, and that creates a scuffle. That's like saying Trump created division. Well, you created a lot of tension between us. Trump just created a boundary. And he basically spoke for how people felt, and it created a polarization. It didn't create a polarization, it underlined an existing polarization that was not being spoken to. So I'm not picking on you or anything, but I think it's very disingenuous. People have to like zoom out a bit. Who is the aggressor here? Okay, setting a boundary and saying this stuff has to stop. We can't keep doing this. That's not creating division. You can't blame that person for creating division because they are standing up for themselves and for other people who feel that way. Everything about him being like a bad person for doing this kind of stuff, that's all manipulation from aggressors. So, and that was the thing. Like, I wasn't a fan of like Trump, the way Trump would say things until I understood that he's provoking these scummy people into revealing themselves, which they have. And I know that people will eventually, I think, will wake up to all of this stuff. So yeah. Anyway, guys, I really love you. I really love you. I mean that. And I'll see you guys soon. All right, we'll talk. Bye.